Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of True Story Live. Tonight's topic is Be Not Afraid. This one written by Marisa. And so we have a lot to look forward to. Unfortunately, one of our members is not here tonight. This is a very rare occasion, which Glenn is not able to make it. But he definitely had more important things to do, not being sarcastic at all. So definitely keep him in your thoughts and prayers. If you pray, definitely just, not being sarcastic, just pray that they have safe travels and that he does plan on being back next Sunday. So there you go. But other than that, we still have a great panel for you. For those listening for the first time, my name is Jason. I'm host of the broadcast, and also normally joining us is Glenn, but also who I have with me is Jen, and it is her birthday. So tonight's broadcast is dedicated to her, of course. It's her birthday extravaganza. Jen, say hello to people and tell everyone.
Happy birthday to me. Hey guys, great to be here. Woo! 42 people, 42. Still young.
Just
getting older.
Yeah.
I'm a baby.
So how's your birthday been this year?
It's been really good, really relaxing, a little emotional, but really good at the same time.
Good.
So it's very, very good. And with my surprise birthday party I had a few weeks back, it just made it super special this year. So it's been lovely. I have felt very loved in my the art stream with Nez last night, Marisa. That was wonderful. So much fun.
Oh, glad
blast.
you enjoyed.
Made it extra special.
Well, happy birthday. I'm glad that you're willing to do the broadcast on your birthday either way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right. And also, Jen mentioned the broadcast last night, and maybe Nez can talk a little bit about that, but it was wonderful. And if you haven't seen it, definitely go over to Nez Lover's channel and give it a look-see. But our friend Marisa, and also the writer of tonight's broadcast. Marisa, say hello, and if you have any opening comments to share, go right ahead.
Hello. Welcome, everybody, to True Story Live. And we love you, Glenn, and we miss you. And we can't wait till you're back again. Safe travels, certainly. And happy birthday, Jen. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jen. Happy birthday to you. And I'm
can't
glad
see me,
you
but I was dancing.
Your gift and your party last night. Go check my channel for Jen's birthday stream that we did last night. She asked me to draw Jesus. I drew Jesus, angry Jesus in the temple.
Angry Jesus.
Flipping over those money-changing tables. Go have a look. Thank y'all for being here. Yes, I did the write-up this time. We're going to talk about here, and I can't wait to get on into it. Thank you both for being here with me tonight.
Thank you, Marisa.
Absolutely.
And thank you for the angry Jesus turning over the money changing tables. I loved it. It was fantastic.
Yay, angry Jesus.
Yeah, love it. Well, here's the thing: people forget that Jesus got angry a couple times, and this particular anger had been bubbling up for a while. So much so that he took the time to create a cord with which to whip.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll do the drawing of Jesus with the whip another time. But
nice.
Yeah.
I had a counselor back in the day that I was seeing, a therapist, and not annoying, but embarrassing to admit that I had a little bit of pride that I was dealing with because my ex was so angry all the time. And I held my anger in, and I felt a little bit righteous, like self-righteous because of that. Sure. And I remember I remember the conversation we had about Jesus and how Jesus got angry, and we had a really good discussion about righteous anger and, showing and feeling anger, but sinning not. And it just was a really good discussion. So every time I hear, every time I think about Jesus and the money changing tables, it makes me think about that conversation.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
All right. we're going to get started after we say hello to those people in the chat. We do have a few people and some returning friends. And I won't ruin it, but Jen, if you want to take a second and say hello to everyone you see in the chat.
Yeah, Stephanie popped in. We haven't seen Stephanie in a while.
Yep,
Hey, girl.
You got it.
Sorry you got COVID again, but I'm glad that you're here. And we also have Floyd and Celine in the chat. I think that's it for right now. But hey, guys, and we'll say hi to anybody else that pops in. Great to be here with you guys tonight.
Floyd Bingo was the first one in the chat. He got his inaugural comment right there at the top.
Yep.
Everyone's here. Okay. All right, let's dive into it, you guys. And as usual, we'll try to say hello to anyone that pops in the chat. Try to keep an eye on that. And also, if you have any answers to some of the questions that we're talking about, please put your answers into the chat and we'll read them on the screen there, hopefully. All right, here we go. Song is the title Be Not Afraid, and the song is Be Not Afraid by Bob Dufford, sung by John Michael Talbot. Includes the lyrics. The link is in the description. Give that a listen if you have the chance and the wherewithal. Tonight, I want to... Oh, wait a minute. Are you reading this, Marisa? What am I doing?
I am. Oh, you can read it if you want to. It's whatever you want to do.
I'm sorry. I went to another place in time. My apologies. That's what you used to do. Guys, I really am sorry. So Marisa's gonna. Usually we talk about it before the show, but now I just assumed that you want to read it, and I just stepped all over your lines here. All right, sorry.
That's okay. That song is "Be Not Afraid," sung by Bob Dufford, sung by John Michael Talbot. And John Michael Talbot is a Franciscan monk, and he's very, very talented musically. Go check out his content. He's wonderful. Tonight, I want to talk about fear. First, some quotes. If my co-panelists or the viewers wish to share their thoughts or ask questions regarding any of these quotes, please feel free. My first question for everyone is, what is fear? And now we'll do some quotes. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. That's from Proverbs 9:10, King James Version. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. That's by Sun Tzu. Even death is not to be feared by one who has lived wisely. That's a quote from the Buddha. Fear stifles our thinking and actions. It creates indecisiveness that results in stagnation. I have known talented people who procrastinate indefinitely rather than risk failure. Lost opportunities cause erosion of confidence, and the downward spiral begins. That's from Charles Stanley. When it comes your time to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home. That's from Chief Tecumseh. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. I lived through that horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. That's from Eleanor Roosevelt. Remember your dreams and fight for them. You must know what you want from life. There is just one thing that makes your dream become impossible: the fear of failure. From our good friend, Paulo Coelho. Where there is charity and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance. That's from Francis of Assisi. And I've got some questions here right after. No, did I get? Okay. Losing my place in my reading. Okay. Some more questions. What do you fear? Do you still have fears carried over from childhood? Is fear something we are born with, or is it learned? What kind of fear is natural and healthy? What about phobias? Is it possible to overcome them? Some fears from my youth. House fire, which came the night the pitch caught fire in my grandparents' chimney. That taught me the valuable lesson in always keeping a chimney clean and swept. Tornadoes, a sky tinged green and stormy, eerie quiet on a humid day, and a warning siren. Flying debris and destruction filled me with terror. I learned to always have a plan to get to shelter. Sharks, yes, though I love swimming. My mind always considered species that can survive freshwater, like the bull shark. To this day, I scan the surface of the water anywhere for any signs of a telltale dorsal fin. I no longer have these fears, but I do have a well-earned respect, knowledge of, and awe for fire, weather, and nature. I used to fear having children. But now I realize they are blessings I cannot live without. I used to fear failure and success, both excuses for procrastination and inaction. I still struggle with those. I fear other people acting out of fear, pushing agendas, mandates, legislation, and the whole Sodom and Gomorrah mentality where anything goes. For example, do what thou wilt, and where evil is called good and good is called evil. But mostly, I fear not pleasing God in my walk of faith. As a Christian, I am called to have no fear. The only fear I am to have is the fear of the Lord. And sometimes that's hard. This world is a dangerous place, filled with possibilities of harm from toxic air, toxic water, toxic food, toxic people, etc. God never told us we would not suffer trials and pain. He told us that He is the one who sees us through all this and all that the world can dish out, and offers an eternity of peace in His presence when we pass from corruptible to incorruptible. And the last quote is, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" And that's Psalm 27, verse 1, King James Version.
Wow.
Let's get started
Beautiful.
with this discussion.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Let's dig in.
Dive in.
Gosh, goodness gracious. Hello to Bobby Meyer, who popped in the chat while Marisa was going over the
Hi,
write-up.
Bobby.
Hello, Bobby. All right. Going up to the top. Okay. Again, for those of you that didn't hear the beginning, Glenn's not here. So we're going to have to it's just going to be the three of us. So definitely help us out in the chat if you want to answer any of the questions. Please do so. All right. First question is, what is fear? Now, I realize that this question is a big question. There's a lot of different types of fear, but if anyone wants to start with this one, go right ahead. Either Jen or Marisa, whichever one of you, or I'll go.
Let the birthday girl do it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, birthday girl. I know this isn't the only thing fear is, but the first thing that came to my mind is anything that stops you from doing something. Could be classified as fear. Now, it could be classified as other things like caution and other stuff, but I feel like fear stops us from doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that popped into my mind.
Oh, fantastic.
Who's next?
Marisa, do you want to go next?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Fear is many things, but like Jen said, it does stop you from taking action when action is required. Fear, other than as a Christian and having the fear of the Lord, which is having respect for God and acknowledging Him and submitting to Him, other than that, fear, Scripture tells us we're not given a spirit of fear. So fear is a spirit, according to Scripture. And it hinders you. It can hold you in bondage, and it can motivate you to make. It not only stops you from doing things you should do, but it can also motivate you to do bad things, things that are bad for you or bad for other people, or just things for the wrong reason.
Right.
So there's a lot of things tied into fear. So.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Marisa.
Thank you, Marisa.
David said in the chat, false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. I love it. FEAR. Perfect. I also like that Marisa put the first scripture that she put in here underneath the question, what is fear, is talking about what she touched on, the reverence, fear of the Lord, reverence. And Jen and I just had to talk about this, about people who seem to misunderstand what the fear of the Lord actually is. A lot of people are literally afraid of God, and no wonder. The way God is represented in certain religions, we should fear him, meaning, we don't want to do anything where he'll hit us over the head with a mallet, or we definitely don't want to cause his attention to be put on us by our behavior, and we don't want that, especially for a child of his, because then when the punishment comes, in order to get us back in a position, the not sparing of the rod, so to speak, but he does that lovingly. So there's obviously that kind of fear. There's fear of things, which Marisa mentions in the write-up, and so we'll talk more about those when we get to them. But fears and phobias. And then there's the general fear that we have, as Jen mentioned, just something that stops us from doing things. And Marisa also mentioned a few of those. I suffer from those as well, the procrastination, and the putting things off, being afraid of success and failure. That's interesting, because I think a lot of people have that, especially creative people. It just fascinates me that you can see someone else that's super creative and they don't act on it. And I'm speaking of myself as well. So this is something I have observed in others, and it's debilitating. It just is a horrible thing. I wish someone taught a class on how to get past these blocks. I mean, they talk about it all the time, writer's block. And so everybody experiences it from one point to another, but how do you get past that? So lots of different kinds of fear. And
What?
Just someone's phone's vibrating.
Oh yeah, I don't think somebody's vibrating.
Gotcha. All right.
Beep beep.
That's kind of my answer for now. I know we have a lot more to fill out with some of these other questions, and we'll get more in detail about that. But I think we hit on a few different types of fear, so everybody can kind of get an idea if they don't already know what fear is. I think most people do. What's Truth popped in the chat. What's Truth? Hello, welcome.
Hi,
We're
What's
glad you're here.
Truth?
Thank you for stopping by. Okay, so normally we'd be going on longer for each question. This might be a really, really short broadcast, because we would have another person answering the question. All right, so we're going to scroll down to the next one. I'll read the last quote from Francis of Assisi. Where there is charity and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance. Lots of good quotes here. We actually could focus on some of the quotes, but maybe we'll go back to that if we have more time left. All right, the first question Marisa asks is, what do you fear? Do you still have fears carried over from childhood? Let's start with the birthday girl. Let's see what she has to say.
For a long time, I've had fears of not succeeding. And my idea of success has definitely changed over many years.
Sure.
But when I was younger, it was very much attached to like career and societal norms, like getting married fairly quickly, having a couple kids, owning a house, going on vacation, all that stuff, white picket fence, 2.5 pets.
Right. Got a half a terrier.
I know, right? Just the back end, no front end. But gosh, it has shifted quite a bit. And I think going through an abusive marriage really put life into perspective.
Yeah.
All of the things that were important to me when I was younger, they were still important to me, and I was promised them.
Yeah.
And they were mostly relational, and I just was love starved,
Yeah.
attention starved, neglected. So, yeah, in the midst of materialism that my ex had, I could give a fig. I just didn't care. I was like, antiques and furniture and a nice car or a boat, none of those things can hug me or like pray over me or anything. It's kind of ridiculous. So I came out of that with just a very different, and it was a blessing. It was a blessing to have these ideas shifted and to come to realize that relationships are the most important thing for me, at least.
Yeah.
And becoming whole, or working every day with God to become a whole person, kind of dismantle fears and different ideas of what the world wants to tell you that's important.
Sure.
But I still have this like kind of nagging, it pops up every once in a while, these old messages, of what I should have at this point in life, at 42. And I do have to laugh at it because life is just not something you can really control all that much. And also, God has a completely different plan for us. His perspective is so much bigger than ours, and he has so much more understanding than we do, that he blesses us in ways I think that we could never imagine. And
Sure.
going through a lot of trials is a part of that. So a lot of the fears I had as a child are dissipating, which is good. I'm grateful for that. One of them being fear of death. Oh my gosh. I was crippled. I was actually telling my sister-in-law today that when I was with my ex, I would think about death like multiple times a day. It was almost like I was morbidly obsessed.
Wow.
But I think there was a lot of reasons behind that, because
Sure.
I had that thing in the back of my head of, I have all of these things that I wanted to have and do by this point in my life, and time kept going by and nothing was changing.
Right.
And I almost didn't feel like my life was my own. I felt like I was this observer trapped inside my head, watching life go by, and I had no say, which I really didn't. I mean, I did, but I didn't realize I did.
Right.
So that was really scary. But yeah, fear of death was another one, and God's delivered me of that. And so I'm just so grateful. So yeah, like I said, a lot of the childhood fears have been dissipating, and I'm very grateful, because it's kind of strange to be an adult and still have these moments where you feel like a child, because you're still kind of wrestling and struggling with some childhood fears. Hey, there's some fireworks going off outside. I think it's for me.
Yeah, it's your birthday extravaganza fireworks display.
We will pretend. But yeah, that's my answer.
You
Thanks,
don't.
guys.
You don't know. I could have
I
worked
don't
it
know.
out for some of the neighbors to put off some fireworks.
You're gonna take you. That was my idea. Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Want to say hello to Jamie Grace, who popped in the chat while Jen was talking, and Annette Sandrock also came in. Welcome to both of you. We're glad that you're here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, Marisa, you're up on this one. What do you fear? Now, you did mention a couple things, and when it gets to me, I'll talk about some of the things you mentioned and how I feel about them. But for now, what do you fear? Do you still have fears carried over from your childhood?
Like I said in my write-up, I've gotten over things like the fear of having a house fire, or
Right.
fear of not just sharks, but anything in the water, that you can't see below the surface, and those have been replaced with just being very careful. You can be wise and informed and careful without having fear be a component. Some people will say, it can be argued that, well, if it wasn't for fear, fear is a survival instinct, and
Sure.
Maybe to a point, but you don't need fear to be aware and educated and careful.
Right.
They're not necessarily, bound together. I'm still fearing that, Jesus gives me the look because I'm not doing so good. I fear displeasing the Lord.
Yeah.
I fear, like I said in my write-up, that I fear other people who are motivated by fear, what they might do, what they're capable of doing.
Right. Right.
Because there's a lot of people out there with a lot of crazy ideas and a lot of agendas being pushed, and things that just aren't good for anybody are being taken as, or trying to be pushed as being seen as normal and acceptable. And I also, to a certain degree, fear of what my children are going to have to face growing up in the world the way it is now.
Right.
I'm not terrified and paralyzed, but I'd say there's certainly a concern. That kind of fear where you're really concerned of, my goodness, what's going to happen? What happens to my daughter if something happens to me? That kind of thing is probably top of my list right now. What I am most afraid of. So
sure. Okay. Well, thank you, Marisa, for sharing that. I'm glad that you.
I wanted to add a side question to Jen.
Yeah.
For you mentioned a fear of death, and that's pretty common, pretty normal. My question to you and to everybody else who's had or has the fear of death: is it the pain of death, the manner in which you die, or is it the result of what happens after you die? Which is more frightening? Is it both? One more the other? I'm interested to hear what people have to say.
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it was the fear of the unknown, like the experience of death. Because even when I believed in heaven and, the afterlife with God, I still, just not having ever died before. It's not like a roller coaster where you're like, hey, I'm going to hop on and experience this and then maybe get over my fear,
That's most of us.
Yeah.
Most of us that haven't experienced death.
So that was part of it. When I was with my ex, part of the fear was I kept, this is a silly thought, but I kept thinking, oh my gosh, when I die, if I die while I'm in this marriage, I'm going to be so ticked off because I haven't done anything or become who I wanted to be. Like, I just was stuck,
Yeah.
But I have to say, I just finished reading a book called Imagine Heaven, and it's about near-death experiences. And I know believers have a lot of mixed feelings about near-death experiences. And there's been some that I've heard, like some testimonies that I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. But this particular book is scripturally based, and I cried almost through the whole thing. Now, God already delivered me from my fear of death. So reading this particular book was a huge blessing to me. It's pretty fascinating. And I don't know if anybody ever gets an inkling to sit down and read a book. I'd highly suggest it, especially if you have struggled with fear of death. But for me, it was definitely the unknown, like not knowing what it feels like or what the experience is like, that scared me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, there you go.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to answer the side question first. I know it was directed toward Jen mainly, or well, you did say anyone. I don't have a fear of death. It's interesting, Marisa, you mentioned, if something happened to you, what would your kids do? And that is a thought that I have come through my head from time to time. If something happened to Jen and I'm left here in this broken, fallen world, on my own, and I try not to dwell on those kinds of thoughts, but it does pass through my mind. Or if something happened to me, she'll be left in this broken, fallen world to fend with what I consider mostly unhealthy people. Like what Marisa mentioned, pushing their agendas. Her fears are, in my opinion, a healthy one. It depends on how much time you spend on it. But there are plenty of dangerous people out there. So she describes it as, I fear other people acting on a fear, pushing agendas, mandates, legislation, the whole Sodom and Gomorrah mentality where anything goes, etc. and definitely the do what thou wilt, which is essentially Satanism. So all those things are reasonable fears. Something happening to someone that you care about. To me, there's a difference between living in fear and a fearful thought. Fearful thoughts, I think it's like a sinful thought, in that we can have a sinful thought and not act on it. It doesn't become sin. It doesn't blossom into sin. Same thing with fear, in my opinion. Some thoughts we have are fearful thoughts. For believers, when that happens and they start to become heavier, we rely on Christ and we rely on the Holy Spirit, and we take it to Him in prayer. At least I do. And that usually allays my fear. I've been with Jen, and to me, there's a difference between fear and anxiety. Anxiety happens quite more often than fear for me. And you deal with that in the same way. So do I have fear? I have fearful thoughts. I don't live in fear of anything. As far as the death is concerned, I've never really been afraid of death. I believed in heaven at an early age, and I was told by my family that it's a better place. And you even hear that in the world when someone dies, oh, he's in a better place. And he may not be in a better place, but the idea of it being a better place is pretty pervasive. So I didn't experience that. I did experience the part of how I would die. The worst thing I can imagine, and again, I don't live in fear of it, but something happening to my brain. And, like Lou Gehrig's disease, where your brain works fine. Either way, either Alzheimer's, where your brain is affected and, it's a long, slow death, or Lou Gehrig's disease, where you're trapped inside. Your brain works fine, but your body doesn't work at all. And that's a slow, agonizing death as well. So there's plenty of bad ways to die. I have thought about how terrible some of these ways would be. And I have, like being burned. I promise I'm not going to go on too long about these morbid ways to die. Just these are fearful thoughts that pass through my mind. The biggest fear that I had in childhood that I still have, and it borders on a phobia, and we'll talk more about that when we get to it, but I almost drowned when I was 5 in an icy river. And so since then, I have, like, sometimes in the summer when you work out in the yard and you take a cold shower, to cool off, and I close my eyes, I have this instant gripping fear like I'm drowning in that icy river. And any movies or TV shows that I've seen where people have fallen through the ice and they can't get out and they're like floating under it and banging on the ice, like that whole thing is in the past, especially that would strike me with terror more than a tornado. Those are scary things. Don't get me wrong. But dying like that is like the worst that I can imagine for me. So that's one that carried on from childhood. It's not as heavy as it was when I was a kid, having gone through that. But it's still there sometimes. I very rarely ever take cold showers, but when I do, I don't close my eyes. So there that is. Let me scan the chat here real quick. Oh, lots to talk about. God, that's wonderful. Floyd says, Amazing grace, the Lord hath carried me this far, and I've no doubt will carry me home always with me.
Amen.
Jamie says, my philosophy as a teen was life sucks and then you die. Death was better than life. As long as I wasn't tortured for it, it was all good. Well, thank you for that. Bobby says, damn, I think I'm the only one here that's not religious. I'm glad that you brought that up, Bobby. I don't think any of us on the panel is religious, and I would say that most of the people in the chat aren't religious. And I know people kind of just lay that word on, well, you're religious. But to me, religion is how man creates a belief system. It's not what I consider I am. Religion also, when I think of it, there's lots of ritual. And I don't have any ritual in my life. I mean, to me, praying is just a relationship, and that's just the way I choose to look at it. It's not anything I feel like I have to do or it's not the same prayer over and over again. I do pray about similar things, but it's not this ritualistic thing that happens. There's no candle waving or what is that thing that the Catholics do? They've got this ball with something burning in it, and they wave it, and smoke comes out.
Censer. That's a censer.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Marisa.
Mm-hmm.
What was my point?
I can hear Glenn laughing at you all the
Religion.
way from Sydney.
That's what it was. Religion. So I would consider myself spiritual and not in the New Age. A lot of people say I'm spiritual and it's New Age. That's not me. I just believe in God. I believe in God. I believe in Christ. I believe in the Holy Spirit. I believe that the Bible is true, and I have seen many things throughout Scripture, prophecies that couldn't have accidentally become correct, and it's all over the place. But I wouldn't call myself religious. But either way, Bobby, you're welcome. You don't have to be religious just because Glenn's not here. You don't have to be religious. No one expects that. Okay, did we all answer this first one?
I believe we did, yes.
Okay, next one is fear something we're born with, or is it learned? And we'll start with Marisa first on this one.
I really don't think we know fear right away. I think we learn it as we go along. I think as babies who touch something hot, they touch it without fear at first, and then they learn, don't they?
Yeah.
Unless they are, there's something wrong developmentally where they just don't have that sense or boundary in their mind.
Right.
More often than not, babies are going to touch something hot for the first time, and they learn.
Yeah.
Don't do that,
Yeah.
So I would definitely say we can learn. I think we are programmed by our families. I think we're programmed by the media and the nefarious powers that be of we should fear people who don't go along with the common narrative, with the mainstream, fear people who are different than you. I mean, they're preaching acceptance and tolerance, but there's a lot of fear propaganda being thrown out there too.
Yeah.
A lot of people are being told that this certain medical condition is this, and you better be afraid of it. And if the only way to get over that is you have to do this, what we tell you to. That's fear. That's fear, straight up. And there's no other way to see that. And so I always tell people in my streams, don't let fear motivate you to make important decisions, especially important medical decisions. And I think that's wise. That's not promoting misinformation. That's encouraging people to think for themselves and not let the fear and the programming do the thinking for you.
Nice. I like it. Thank you so much, Marisa.
Mm-hmm.
Hello to the Nut House who popped in. We're glad that you're here. Thank you for stopping by. If you haven't had a chance to go over to the Nut House and sample his various medias over there, and by that I mean he's multifaceted. He does covers, really, really well done, mostly guitar, but other instruments as well. Covers of popular music, and he's done a couple really good ones. One was a Led Zeppelin instrumental, and the videos that he put on, and I even commented on there, is very moving and stirring videos in my opinion. And then I forget what the last one was, but it was some beautiful shots of the area, I'm assuming, in which he lives, and really well done. And then also does skits, writes up scripts, and gets people from other channels to come and do some acting, which is a lot of fun. And there's quiz and game shows on there, and just general conversation, sometimes about truth or stuff, if you're into that sort of thing, and definitely some godly stuff as well. So if you haven't visited the Nut House, please do yourself a favor and do that. Okay, and we're glad that you're taking time out of your night to come on Jen's birthday episode as well, and also the one that Marisa wrote. So glad that you're here. Janet, our Janet, our friend Janet is in the chat as well. So we say hello to her. And I think that's it. And we'll get back to Jen on this one. What do you think, Jen? Is fear something we're born with, or is it learned? What do you say about that? Jen? I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yep, gotcha.
I think we're sort of wired for it a little bit, when we're born. But I think there's a lot of fears that we're taught, in childhood. Gosh, in so many different ways. So I think it's both. I think there's some innate fear that we have, the ability to have fear, just like we have the ability to feel hurt,
right.
Physically or emotionally. And it's sort of built into us to be able to protect ourselves. But I also think, the things that we learn within our families of origin,
sure,
they can kind of play into our fears. Oh my gosh, you guys will crack up with this. I have this memory, a few memories of being a kid, and I think it was fairly soon after my parents taught me about death.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that conversation, but it was sort of like, I don't know if you guys remember when you were a kid and it's almost like finding out about Santa not being real.
Right.
Your parents have a chat with you, pet dies or something like that, and you have a conversation.
Yeah.
But I have a few memories of being at school, and sorry, I have to burp, where I guess I was having gas cramps, and it was that kind where it's like a sharp pain in your side.
Yeah.
And when you try to take a deep breath, it makes it worse. And so I couldn't breathe. And I remember feeling like I was going to die. I was dying, in the middle of class.
Oh no. Wow.
So, I don't know how I connected the two. I thought that was what death was like or something. And so it was really scary. It was really scary. But even when I was little, I did have a fear of death. I remember, having nightmares of dying and waking up just in a full-on panic. And my mom had shared with me this past year at some point that when I was little, I would have to face the wall when I slept.
Yeah.
And I think I had told her a couple times, I'm going to die if I don't sleep facing the wall.
Wow.
I don't know what that was about. I think sometimes if I slept on a certain side, I would have these kind of nocturnal panic attacks.
Yeah.
Or, these death dreams that would wake up in a complete panic.
Wouldn't that classify as a phobia or an OCD? I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think it could. Well, what's interesting is when I was in my abusive marriage, I sort of had the same thing where if I fell asleep on my left side,
yeah,
I was more inclined to have these nocturnal panic attacks that would wake me up and I couldn't breathe and my adrenal glands just dumped and, heart rocketing. I seriously, trying to catch my breath, couldn't breathe, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I don't know if it has something to do with my body. I just, you hear these things of if you sleep on one side, your vagus nerve and all this other stuff. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I found it interesting because when my mom told me about that as a kid, I thought, wow, that's interesting. Because that's kind of what I discovered, when I was married before and just had these panic attacks in the middle of the night. And they were multiple. I remember having 4 to 6 of these panic attacks almost every night. And I, for almost 2 years, I think, a lot of the times I would stay up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning to exhaust myself to the point where I could go to sleep and it wouldn't happen. It was really traumatic. That's not good.
Traumatic. Well, Jen, to interrupt you, I don't know if you're done or not, but the Nut House said, I think we have cellular memory. So some fear is instinctual, we have a genetic memory. So if he's right about that, and there may be some truth to that, then you sleeping on that certain side causing those horrible attacks.
Yeah.
There could be something, who knows?
It's possible. God's made our bodies so unique and incredible.
Right. Right. Were you done answering, Jen? I didn't want to
Yes.
interrupt, but I wanted to make that point. Okay, cool. Janet's saying some really nice things about you in the chat. So thank you, Janet. She's very loving and kind. Appreciate that. Hello to Andrew, who popped in the chat. Welcome, Andrew. We're glad that you're here. And okay, so let's see. Fear something. Okay, so my turn. I agree with what both of you said. So the first part of the question is fear something we're born with. You both, in my opinion, nailed it. I think we can learn fears from our family and the world in general. I agree with what Marisa pointed out that, we're not born into fear. We're born into being hungry, and we're disturbed from our mother's womb, and, it's bright lights and usually a spanking. I don't think they do that anymore, but, when I was born, they certainly did that. Swat you on the butt and get your lungs working. I think there are plenty of other better ways without your first experiencing being hit by an unseen hand.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. So your parents obviously have their own fears of things, and as you grow, you can be programmed into picking up their fears if you're not careful. And I'm sure some people are worse than others, and they can really strike fear. And you hear all these, different not just religions, but different countries. They have different things that are told by the grandparents, these horrible creatures that are out there in the woods, or or even the fear of, if they teach you to believe in Santa, as a disciplinary tool. Like if you don't act right, Satan, I know, Freudian slip. Satan's not going to bring, or say, I did it again.
No, you go ahead. You said it right. Krampus is going to bring
Satan's going to bring your presents. I'm just going to say it.
She said Krampus.
Krampus.
Say no to Saturnalia. That's what I do. Oh,
That's
boy.
right.
If I can make a quick comment, you brought
please.
up grandparents and elders, and this is common in tribal families, like Native American tribes. They're not trying to they're not telling these stories to the young people just for fear's sake. They're trying to instill wisdom and knowledge to their younger family and tribe members, because where they come from, where they stand, they acknowledge Sasquatch, they acknowledge Dogman and Skinwalker and Wendigo and you name it. Right. And they're just trying to warn them about where not to go and what not to do, just like we do when we tell our kids, look both ways before you cross the street. So I just wanted to add that I don't believe they're trying to just instill fear. I think they're actually trying to give a helpful bit of advice.
Okay.
So, okay. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to jump in there.
No, you're fine. Please jump in anytime. No, that's great. You may be right about that, Marisa, especially in some countries. But, like in downtown LA, Sasquatch isn't really an issue. I mean, there are plenty of
No, he's in the mountains near LA.
Right.
He's in Mount Shasta.
Yeah. So I think there are some people that do it for the reason of fear or to control the kids. There are plenty of legends that ridiculously include, if you don't act right, a certain creature is going to come and steal you away. I mean, the creature's going to steal you away because it wants food, not because you're being a bad boy. It can happen to good or bad. Right. These creatures can take anybody.
I was told that the boogeyman, if you better not wander too far away at night or whatever, the boogeyman's going to come and get you. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if anybody else ever heard of that, but.
Sure. Boogeyman. So I guess my overall point is, for the first part, is that it is taught. I don't think we're born with it. Certainly the Bible makes it clear, as Marisa mentioned earlier, we're not given the spirit of fear. I do feel like we do have something God instilled in us. Like if we're being chased, we want to run. I mean, if you know martial arts, then maybe you'd stand and fight. But the world calls it, Neanderthal instinct or our lizard brain, or, our instinct. Oh, we have an instinct for flight or fight or flight. But I think God put that in us. That sometimes there is what I would consider a healthy fear. It helps our body responds to things automatically in certain circumstances. I mean, as ridiculous as you driving your car into a lake, your instinct is going to be to get out and get to fresh air. And when someone is drowning, a lot of times they drown because they're trying to breathe, and even underwater, their body has something about it wants to protect it and keep it from dying. And it goes beyond thought. The person isn't thinking, oh, I need to breathe. The body's wanting to breathe in and of its own. And I don't take the route of obviously Big Bang and evolution. So my only conclusion is that God put that into us. It's part of the way we're designed. The same way we don't have to think about our heart beating; it just does it on its own. The second part, do you still have? Oh wait, no, that's the first one. Is fear something we're born with, or is it learned? I guess I answered it. I think it's learned. I agree with the both of you on that one. Let me check the chat real quick. I don't see anything in relation to this question. All right. Next one is, what kind of fear is natural and healthy? Well, I kind of jumped the gun on that one, but let's go with Marisa first on this one. Or no, Jen's next. What kind of fear is natural and healthy, Jen?
I think Marisa had mentioned earlier about the hot stove. You do something that hurts you bodily harm wise, and it's good to have fear of those things so that you're safe.
Yeah.
I saw some people mention stranger danger.
Right.
I think
True.
that's very important for kids to know about that, and people, adults too, because things happen to adults as well.
Yeah, sure.
So you
Especially
just
in
got to be
state
careful.
parks.
Yeah. And just in our world today, it
Yeah.
can get a little hairy, dicey. So I think that kind of fear is good. In the past, I think some people in the chat have dealt with this, where you have ruminating thoughts. I know I've gotten stuck in areas of my life where, it starts off as like a healthy fear, and then it sort of snowballs into
Right.
this like, not an obsession, but just like ruminating thoughts. Like even fear of death. I think maybe a little bit of a fear of death, or just being aware that death exists,
Right.
can help keep you safe.
Don't do stupid, what?
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're thinking about it all the time, I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's how God, wants us to live, in that kind of fear.
Right.
Gosh, I think that's all I can think of right now. So that'll be my answer.
Okay. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah.
Marisa, what kind of fear is natural and healthy?
I agree with Jen. Fear of touching hot things, of not sticking your hand in the fire, not just running across the street without
Right.
looking.
Right.
Stranger danger, definitely. And that transcends childhood. That's good advice to always be aware, no matter how old you are.
Yeah.
I don't think it takes fear, but I think it takes, again, we're talking about, you can be wise and you can be knowledgeable and educated and be aware. You can have those things without necessarily roping fear into that equation.
Right.
It's always good to lock your door, lock your windows. That's just common sense. You don't have to be motivated by fear to do those wise things.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Food that's been sitting in your refrigerator a little bit too long. You gonna take that chance, or are you gonna do the smart thing and just throw it out?
I'm
like you
taking the
should?
chance.
The simplest. It sounds funny, but something like that, just getting rid of that can save you a whole lot of trouble. Anybody who's ever had food poisoning or ate something that just was a little bit past its prime and you didn't feel too good afterwards, Well, you can
Right.
prevent that. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, just you don't have to. I don't think you need to be afraid to be motivated to do things to prevent, or at least attempt to prevent bad things from happening.
Yeah.
No self-defense. Have a weapon to protect yourself with and know how to use it.
Yes.
Have medical supplies handy.
Yeah.
You don't have to use fear to motivate yourself. You can just use common sense.
Right.
Yeah. Smarts.
Right. This
Can I
part,
add something? Oh,
after this
Go ahead.
after this commercial break, this part of TSL has been brought to you by the gun lobby. Sorry.
that was pretty good.
Go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
Going back to the stranger danger, I saw something really, really unfortunate. Somebody posted on Facebook. I guess it's a pamphlet that's going around. I don't know who's passing these out because it just shows the inside of the pamphlet, but it's sort of like a complete flip on the stranger danger thing. And it's got 3 sections of this pamphlet, and it's got 3 different pictures of an adult guy, around a kid. And the first one says, "Do not be afraid." It says, "If a stranger walks up to you, no need to be scared. Usually they don't mean any harm." And then the middle one says, "Do not scream or cry. This can hurt the person's feelings." And then the last one says, "Do not call him a pedophile. This can be just as offensive as the N-word."
Wow.
And I saw this and I was like, what the heck? This world's just getting turned on its head. It's just
what
insanity.
kind of crazy pamphlet were you looking at? What?
Well, that's what I'm going to send you the picture because I just was like, what in the world?
My goodness.
It's so messed up.
I don't want to go on a rant here, but seriously, this is what they're doing. And Marisa mentioned in the write-up, making good things bad and bad things good. I mean, this is what the Bible describes, but this is what they've been doing for years. Something that in the 50s was taught. The idea of being careful around strangers now, at least this pamphlet. But there's a general mentality that I've seen where they're trying to change how everything is socially. I mean, the whole thing. Oh my gosh, the whole thing about starts with the bathrooms, and then it becomes, oh well, you can't even say anything. You got to call people by the right pronouns. I mean, it is happening, and so it's not surprising to me at all that they're trying to change the stranger danger into it'll hurt their feelings. That doesn't surprise me. It should.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's even gotten to the point where pedophilia, let's call it what it is being named, what's it called? Somebody had a video up where a
minor attracted.
Minor attracted. Thank
Right.
you very much. If you hear that or see that, hello, that's pedophilia. That's not some alternative style of sexuality that any sane grown adult should be for or partaking of.
But
that's effed up.
Yeah, they're pushing.
And it's wrong.
Wrong.
There's no mentality that is socially acceptable that makes that okay.
At present, yes.
At present. And it should never. If you're finding things in your children's schools, or you're hearing things on the TV or the radio, take note. That's not cool. That's programming. They're trying to get things that are evil to be accepted and called good, and that's very, very bad.
Agreed.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Sick. That therapist should have her license taken away, and she needs to be locked up.
Yep.
It's wrong.
Totally agree.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm ranting.
I started it. Well, Jen started it.
I started it with the pamphlet.
Jen started with the pamphlet.
You got me triggered. Yeah, I got triggered.
Yeah, triggered. Yeah.
Have you guys heard of? There's actually a some kind of medical. What is the word I'm looking for? It's something that somebody misses. They're missing the fear gene. Like they just don't have fear about anything.
Yeah.
Y'all heard of
Isn't
that? I've
that
seen like
psychopathy
documentaries.
or sociopath?
That's it. The psychopath doesn't
Maybe.
have any fear. Yeah.
I'm serious. I think
Yikes.
that's it. I think
Yeah.
that's it.
It's like no fear.
They don't have
Can't
a lot of
imagine.
things. It's not just fear. They don't have empathy either. There's several
Yeah.
things that they're saying that this person doesn't have.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, there are arguments and debates about that. I think that they're taught how to be that. Is there occasionally born a person that just doesn't seem to have any soul? They're just all flesh. There's nothing in them, no empathy,
Like empty.
no fear. Right? Does that happen? Maybe, but I think 9 times out of 10, a serial killer is trained and programmed to do what they do. We all have potential for evil. I'm not saying that, but to get to the point where some of these horrible atrocities that are committed in the world are done over and over and over again, unchecked, then there are other things involved there, just in my opinion. But anyway, we'll try to bring it back around. So did Jen, were you done? Wait, Jen answered what kind of fear is natural and healthy. And then Marisa answered, I think I already jumped the gun on this one a little bit. I do believe that we do have healthy, natural fears. I mentioned that I believe God puts those in us. And Marisa mentioned that they should be common sense. You know, sure, a kid's not going to know if they see a hot stove that it's hot, or that water boiling on the stove is also hot. They're not. It's something they have to learn, like anything else. And definitely, a kid doesn't know not to cross the street before looking both ways without being taught that. They think they're the world
revolves around them.
Yeah, I hate to use that term, but yes,
I
the
know.
world revolves around them. And everyone's just going to stop. If I run out on the road to get a ball, the vehicles will stop because, it's my ball. It's in the road, and that's all that I can see in that moment. So, yeah, they have to be taught. And then some of the things you guys mentioned, the natural fear of, just protect yourself and just use what should be common sense. We should all be doing that. And it's a crazy world out there. You don't know what people are. I don't want to live in a place where I just I'm leery of every person that I meet. No, it's not that. It's just keep your head on a swivel, especially if you're in a place that you're unaccustomed to. You don't know where things are or who's around you. It's not fear necessarily. It's just it should
awareness.
be a common sense. Yeah, an awareness that just watch out for people who are going to do some crazy stuff. That's all.
Exactly. And people tend to be afraid of things that they are ignorant about, that they don't understand, that they don't have any information on or limited information. Sure. Fear comes right out of that. So it pays to be informed, and especially when that's going to take away fear's power if you are informed.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. One more question here is, what about phobias? Is it possible to overcome them? I'll go first on this one. I've been waiting for this one the whole broadcast, so it's all about me. The world does revolve around me, at least in this moment.
Me.
Yeah, right? Me. Fears to me, fears are deeper, or phobias rather, are deeper fears. Fear can become a phobia. OCD can play a part in that. And if a fear is left unchecked and you keep thinking about it, keep focusing on it, you start changing your life to accommodate a fear, it can become a phobia. They're in the same family, in my opinion. Very few people that I've seen just start out with a phobia. It's a fear first, and then it becomes a phobia. Even OCD, I've read studies on this. Abnormal psychology is probably one of my favorite classes when I was in school, just because it's interesting to me, all the things that people can be afraid of. Some ridiculous things, in my opinion, but I'm not the one that was programmed to have the fear in the first place. But if a parent tells you, oh, they're real germ, if your parent is afraid of germs, and they can tell you all these facts that they think they have found about germs and create this fear in you, And then it can start by your parent wanting you to wash your hands several times a day. I don't mean just washing them after you've been playing outside all day for dinner. I mean, that's a standard things that all kids should do. But they keep harping on you about it when you're a kid. And then when you grow up, you're washing your hands excessively. So a fear can turn into a phobia, and it can also turn into OCD, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't have any phobias. That the one that I talked about, it could have become a phobia. It's just something I don't want to happen. Really, that's what it comes down to. I don't want to fall through an icy river and be trapped
Nope.
under the ice. And yes, it is a little weird to me that if I close my eyes in a cold shower, that I'm gripped with this feeling that I don't like. So I just don't do that. It's I'm not thinking every time I take a shower, okay, I might close my eyes. No, I just don't take cold showers. It's really easily avoided. I've even driven out on an icy lake, but that's, as Marisa was saying, that's, I have the knowledge that lake is frozen enough that it can support the weight of the car. I'm not going to do it when the ice just starts tingling or starts freezing around the edges of the lake and I can see that there's water still there. I'm not going to do that. Is it possible to overcome them? Absolutely. Again, on this topic, there's it's called immersion therapy, and that's what's generally used for phobias. And it's just fascinating to me how people that use that technique can take someone, for instance, who's afraid of flying, and you don't start out like the first day once they tell you, oh, I'm definitely afraid of flying. You don't go and put them on the plane that first day. You show them pictures of an airport. And then after you do that for a while, then you just, their goal for that day is just to drive to the airport, not go in, not get on a plane, but just drive to the airport. And it's little by little, step by step. And then the goal being to eventually get them on a plane trip. Usually the first one, the therapist will be with them or someone will be with them to help support them through that. And then they take off and land and they realize that, there's nothing to be afraid of. Planes crash, bad things happen to cars on the freeway. To live your life under a phobia is just, it's just a horrible experience. It's not living, in my opinion. But I think there are ways to overcome them. Anybody who is trapped by something can figure out a way to get out, figure out a way to live a better life. So yes, I believe that you can overcome them. We'll go with Marisa next on this one. What about phobias, Marisa? Is it possible to overcome them?
Unless the person has a profound medical condition where they're going to be that way, for their whole life because of their particular condition. I'm speaking of special needs people,
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about. There's just, sometimes those people are just going to have those things and that's just who they are. But for the regular everyday people, I do believe they can be overcome. And I'm a full supporter of immersion therapy. I think once you've gradually made your way to the point where you can face your fear, and then that's the objective, facing it, then you can do away with it. There was a quote I didn't get to include in the write-up.
Oh,
it's expose yourself to your deepest fear. After that, fear has no power, and the fear of freedom shrinks and vanishes. You are free. And that's from Jim Morrison. So there's, the way to conquer your fear is just to plow forward and do it anyway.
Agreed.
But you have to realize that, no matter what you do, bad things are going to happen to people, good and bad alike.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Jason. You can't live your life not living your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you're a believer, a person of faith, you've got to. You have got to trust God. If you are a follower of God, then trust him. And if you don't, then what are you doing?
Right.
So if you have God to lean on, and him to carry you, then you shouldn't fear anything in this world. You really shouldn't. Sounds easy to say, and it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to do, but it's the
Yeah.
truth.
I agree. Thank you,
I agree.
Marissa. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Say hello to Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, who popped in the chat. We're glad that you're here, brother.
Hello, Believe.
Thank
Hey,
you, thank you.
Believe.
He's been making the rounds, hanging out on all kinds of channels. Wonderful. Great to see you. Okay, Jen, what about phobias? Is it possible to overcome them? What's your take?
I think yes. I'll share one of mine. So, and I hate to keep harping on my abusive marriage, but it's, it stemmed in childhood. My dad had rages and would scare the crap out of us kids. And a lot of times it was unexpected. So I spent a childhood sort of in anxiety and on eggshells waiting for the next time to happen. And then I ended up marrying someone a million times worse.
Oh my gosh.
So and I do think it was purposefully done, but there was slamming doors and punching walls and breaking things and throwing things and road rage. And so I ended up, and I didn't really recognize this while I was in it until I got out, but I ended up developing, I forget the name of it, like the technical medical term, but just hearing noises louder than they actually are, especially like banging and slamming doors and stuff. And it's sending my whole body, like inside my body, in this just adrenaline dump, fight or flight. But I would just sit there with like all of these chemicals, like, churning in my body. And that happened too when I had like the nocturnal panic attacks. But so when we moved into this apartment, Jason and I had a really hard time. Like there was one time his nephew came over and they were playing a soccer video game, and Finn, our nephew, was just so excited and he gets really loud and rambunctious. And I'm sitting next to him on the couch. My body is freaking out. And I'm looking at this cute little kid, and he's screaming and my body's just not okay, and I went into the room and I was just sort of freaking out. So Jason was mentioning to me the immersion therapy, and it's funny to say that living in this apartment with these noisy neighbors that walk really heavy and make all kinds of noises, sometimes it still gets to me, and I have like old, effects that happen in my body. It's not as bad, but for the majority, the immersion therapy for me has really helped. It's kind of gotten me used to regular, apartment living noises to where my body isn't freaking out all the time. And I'm feeling like, oh gosh, we need to move, like this is not happening. I can't do this.
Thank God.
Even dishes, Jason would be doing the dishes and he's kind of a loud disher put aware. I'm very careful. I'm very careful. Like it's like maybe too careful. I'm trying to make it very quiet, but I used to hold my ears when he would do it. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, my ears. So I do think immersion therapy can really help. I know it's helped me. It doesn't feel the greatest at first, but once you kind of get into it, it definitely, it's beneficial.
Yeah.
So that would be one of many. I don't know if it would be considered OCD, but it's definitely a what would you call that, Jason? Like
complex. It'd be complex post-traumatic stress disorder. In my opinion.
So that's my answer.
Call it. Thank you, Jen. Yeah, putting the dishes away. I am not a quiet put dishes away I am not. Like a lot of guys, the purpose is to get it done. We're not trying to, like lollygag around, but I'm an empathetic guy. I mean, I remember the first time, it's like my job to put dishes away and, load the dishwasher. Jen does it, from time to time for sure, but it's supposed to be me that does it. So sometimes before bed, I'll want to do it. And, she let me know about this, that, the noise and stuff. And so I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? I mean, so what I try to do is do it when she's not at home. But if she's awake and around now, it's a lot easier. I can go ahead and do it. And I am a little bit more conscious if she's home, putting them away quieter. But that doesn't, I don't always remember to do that. I'm trying to get them in the cupboards and I'm not,
Yeah, it's much better now.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful because living like that, and I know Stephanie and Janet in the chat said they have that as well. It's not fun what it does to your body. It's like torture. It's like being tortured.
Yeah.
And so I just never thought I would be grateful to God for my noisy neighbors. And our entire apartment complex, all of these heavy metal doors that are on these apartments, they all have industrial spring hinges.
Yeah.
So if people don't use their hand to quietly shut the door, which the majority of our neighbors don't do, and there's kids, so they're going in and out of the doors all the time, just letting the doors slam behind them.
Yep.
And I'm like, it shakes the building. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
But it's gotten way better to the point now where Jason will be watching a show and he's getting annoyed and it doesn't even bother me. I'm like, whatever, so thank God.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm annoyed for you because of the way that you reacted in the beginning. So, I can't, I feel helpless. I can't do anything to I can't go knock on each door and say, hey, could you guys be respectful that other people live around you? And could you not slam your door? I mean, could you do what I do when I come in the door? I make sure to, hold the door and close it.
Well, you could do that, but that'll probably go over like a lead balloon.
That's my point.
They'll be like, go away, dude, you idiot.
That's my point.
It's my door. I can do whatever the hell I want with my door.
But
Jen, I know what you mean about torture, though. Diana's dad used to come up behind me. Yeah, I hate that crap. And he would do this monkey noise, like a rabid marmoset, kind of, like that kind of thing.
Oh,
and,
my gosh.
Oh, my God. I almost punched him so many times, scaring me like that. Oh, my God. And that's torture.
And they get a kick out of it.
He didn't mean it that way, but I understand what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that kind of stimuli that affects you that way. It is torturous. I wanted to scream him every time he did that to me. Oh my God.
Yeah, and then when you tell him it bothers you, then it amps up. You're like, really? Seriously?
Not me. No.
Well, not you.
Then they do it more. Then they do it more. Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Then you think, should I do the reverse psychology thing and say, oh, I love that? And then
love it when you bang dishes
doing.
around.
You're like, dang it.
Please, if you could bang the dishes around a little louder for me, that'd be great. Thanks. Wow. Okay. Well, guys, we went through all the questions, so we have so if anyone's doing a poll out there of how much Glenn adds to the show by way of time, it's 9:17, so 45 minutes less doing a write-up without Glenn. Of course, I'm joking a little bit in that because a lot of his answers are so short, but it's a fourth person to hear from at least, and so
I would like to throw out another quote or two that did not fit into the write-up, if I may.
Yeah.
Sure.
This one is, too much self-centered attitude, you see, brings isolation. Result? Loneliness, fear, anger. The extreme self-centered attitude is the source of suffering. That's from Dalai Lama. And then one I wanted to read from Nelson Mandela. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. So I didn't get to fit in the write-up, but important words to remember,
Absolutely. So what I wanted to focus on a little bit, because I mentioned this earlier in the write-up, Marisa was talking about house fires and things like that. Tornadoes in particular. So I've lived in an area where tornadoes, not like the breadbasket where they seem to be way more prevalent, but I've lived in our area during the summer. We get warnings and things like that. But I have had one experience, and this was in Texas. We were visiting some friends there, and we spent time in their apartment, and then we were on our way back. And the reason we were leaving is because there was a warning in the area, and the sky was getting pretty crazy looking. So we were going to try to get back in our car and get home before this thing possibly hit. And when we went to go visit the person, there was no parking close to the apartment. So we were literally like probably a quarter mile away in the parking lot. So we had to walk back to the car. No big deal. But the wind started picking up and they took off running. And I didn't remember where the car was. The first time I've ever been there, and I knew kind of in what direction it was. But they took off and left me, and I'm standing there and like, oh my gosh. So I started running behind them. But they all got in the car, and the wind, I'd never seen the wind this violent, and a little bit of water. It wasn't like full downpour or anything like that, but there was nowhere for me to go. So there was a pool, like the apartment pool. So the clubhouse was right there. So I went up and hugged the wall underneath this little awning, and the wind was beating around all over the place and pelting me with little sand pebbles and things like that. And it was only probably like 20 seconds maybe. But it was a scary moment. I never saw a funnel cloud. I wasn't looking for that. I was trying to find cover. So I wasn't like, sometimes you see these videos where someone's actually filming it rather than, getting to shelter, and some horrific stories surround those types of videos. But so I didn't see it. And after the fact, I didn't see it. It may not have even been a tornado. It could have just been, like one that was almost forming or something. I don't know. But it was scary. So I have tornado dreams, but the dreams are very different. I'll actually see the funnel cloud, see it pulling buildings up and cows and vehicles and things like that. But in those dreams, it's like I had a dream where Jen and I were driving in a car, and there were tornadoes all over the place. We could see them, and they were all around us, but we just drove right through them. So for anyone that likes to interpret dreams, I'm sure you could come up with some stuff to analyze that. But it's pretty frequent. And sometimes I've had dreams where a tornado does grab me and puts me up, and they're fun. They're not horrible. But I know in real life, as Marisa was saying, we need to have a healthy respect for nature, awe of fire, weather, and nature for sure. And in real life, I would find shelter, obviously, if there was a tornado around. Anyone else with I know Marisa already shared about tornado. Jen, how do you feel about tornadoes?
I've had many nightmares of tornadoes. It's not fun. And usually there's like tons, and I'm always trying to drive, away from them. And then there's more, and I haven't had one in a really long time though, which is good. I think it was sort of a reflection of my chaotic life before.
Right.
And just being and just simmering anxiety 24/7. I think it was sort of, a sort of reflection mirrored.
Yeah.
Not good. I definitely don't like tornadoes. That we have like sirens here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And the weather can get kind of bad, and Jason is so calm, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to get away from the windows, and
Right.
the sirens go, and Jason's like, it's fine. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think when we first moved in together, I was like a little annoyed that he wasn't more like cautious or more concerned.
Yeah.
So it could make me feel better if you were a little more concerned.
Yeah.
But I've come to realize that, they kind of overdo it here. And I know it's probably they're trying to make sure people are safe and stuff.
Well,
so.
Sure. When it scares me is if I actually spot it, or I see that the trees are, because I went through Hugo, which was a hurricane, and I actually saw the trees bending like toothpicks in the wind, like left and right, almost touching the ground. So once you've been through that, and what I think was almost a tornado, you're not as afraid of it. It is immersion. That doesn't mean that I don't have a respect for it. Like if I saw any signs of anything coming down, yes, I would take it seriously.
Can we say hello to Big Tim? That's Alta MAGA Country in the chat. I think he's on his way out, but I wanted to quick say hello while he was here.
Of
Hi,
course.
Big Tim.
Hello, Tim, and go visit Tim's channel, Alta Maga Country. Do yourself
Just
a favor. That story I told that was in Texas, John Dons was actually, that's who I was with, he and his ex-wife. So it was the three of us in Texas back in, I think, 94. When was the Oklahoma City bombing? That's when we were in Texas when that happened. Mid-90s, early mid-90s, I think. But anyway, Rob knows that story. It's interesting that he just popped in right then, and I was telling that. So welcome to John Dons as well, and to Tim. Thank you both for coming by. Okay, now we could end the broadcast early, or we could go back into some of the other parts of Marisa's write-up, and I certainly can stretch this out a little bit. What do you guys want to do? And I'm asking since it's Jen's birthday and we don't have Glenn here. So either way, guys, what would you like to do? We can draw it out till the top of the hour, or we can let everyone go home early.
We can draw it out some more. That's cool with me.
Yeah, let's draw it out. I know Glenn will want to watch the replay. Let's give him something to watch.
I'm trying to think of some other aspects of fear that we could come at. I can't think of any. Fear. I think about like fear of failure. I don't know if there's anybody in the chat that's dealt with that. I'm sure everybody has to some degree.
Oh, yeah.
Fear of failure. And, Glenn has helped me so much because he sort of drilled in, and it's like I've heard this before, but it didn't really click until Glenn started talking to me about it, about how, digging into why am I afraid to fail? And, it came down to one, me being a perfectionist and wanting to be able to sit down and do something perfect the first time. And I think that stems from my childhood and my past marriage, because mistakes were not okay. Like my whole life, mistakes were not okay. I was expected to do things right the first time, and I got into a lot of trouble in both situations if I didn't.
Yeah.
And also not being able to read people's minds. I was expected to know things. I know you went through this with your dad too, Jason. Expected to know things I wasn't told about or wasn't taught, but then I would get in trouble.
Yeah.
And Glenn just really helped me realize that making mistakes it's a part of the process of learning. It's a part of the process of getting perfected at a craft like art or anything that you put your mind to. So mistakes being stepping stones in the process of learning and growing and changing is huge. And so having that mindset change for me was a big deal.
Yeah.
Just because I kind of grew up with this mindset that mistakes aren't okay.
Right.
They're incredibly bad, like incredibly bad. And so I think there was a little OCD within myself that came from that, but also just being frozen and not trying things, and letting other people lead because I thought I would screw it up. And that if they made the mistake, they got in trouble. It wasn't me, but that wasn't the case. I still got in trouble if somebody else made a mistake. So it's just like, crazy. So I don't know what you guys want to do with that, but
yeah, I had, as Marisa mentioned in the write-up, fear of success and of failure, and I had some of that too. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. So it's a fear of failing, which I think we're taught that, like Jen's describing, like mistakes aren't good at all, like they're horrible. I agree with what you said, Jen, and I also learned that a little bit from Glenn when I was talking about my divorce, and I talked about it as a failure in a marriage, and he didn't see it like that. He explained some things from his perspective. And of course, if my life hadn't turned out the way it did, I don't know, there might be a part of me that still saw it as a failure, but I learned a lot from it, and it was actually a success. So to me, it all depends on perspective, how you're looking at it. If you're looking at it, just was a couple of years ago and, you were married and now you're not, it'd be easy, in my opinion, to look at it as a failure. But I think Glenn's view is a good one. It's a good way to look at the things that happen in your life. As Jen said, a process which you go through, by which if you're paying attention, you can learn. But a lot of people don't have that perspective, and they certainly don't teach it. They don't teach that, oh yeah, you hear the terms, if you fall off the horse, you get right back on, et cetera, et cetera. So some people believe it. Some people believe that you keep trying. Marisa put a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, and I know Teddy Roosevelt was very much believed in, getting on the horse, literally and figuratively, and to keep at things, keep trying. And Eleanor Roosevelt's quote that Marisa picked was, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face." Well, there's immersion if I've ever heard of it. I lived through that horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. So definitely a good quote. So the fear of failure and then the fear of success would be, what if I am successful in something and it doesn't match my imagination of what it will be? And I've talked about this on the broadcast before, recently, when I was talking about Troy Aikman had made the comment after winning Super Bowls, and he did all this work and got to the end and said, "Is this it?" And, a lot of people have that. They set some goal, like gymnasts, they work 6-7 hours a day to get to the Olympics. And then once the Olympics are over, then what do? You do it all over again. And to me, that's the perception. That's how they're looking at it. If you looked at going to the Olympics as just part of your life, that's not going to last forever. You're not going to have the same level of physical strength and endurance that you have now. Same thing with people that play football. They tell them, do something with your money when you have it, because, you're not going to play football forever. It's just reality. So it all depends on how a person looks at this. So success for me was something I was afraid of. And I'm happy to say that I feel like I'm over both of those, the fear of failure and the success. But I'm still learning, like starting channels. I mean, I didn't have any fear about starting TSL. But I had a fear of what if it was ever successful? I was worried about, will that affect my ego? Like, what if it's not what I imagined it would be? And it has paralyzed me. It just really has. And this is something that's going on right now. These other channels that Jen and I have started, Dr. Sleep is one, and the other is Out of the Dark. It's being creative. And I am in a place in my life right now where I am delighted every day. Even if nobody listens, it is something that I get a sense of satisfaction from, just creating something. But I have had this idea for probably 30 years, not specifically to have a YouTube channel where I read stories, but to put myself out there, whatever it is. I'm a writer as well. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a director, and I've done things in those areas. But when it comes to, putting my voice out there and trying things and things like that, I've put off doing it for a long time. But right now I have the attitude, of course I want to do a good job and I want it to sound as good as it can. But if it takes off, it's God, that does something with it. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm not going to let the fear of success or failure keep me from trying things that are creative. And Marisa helped out with that. She was trying to help Jen, but it actually helped me as well. And her encouragement to, just try a little bit at a time. And that's how it starts. So for anyone suffering from that, you don't have to go from 0 to 60 in a few minutes. You can just do a few things, whatever you're afraid of, just, immerse yourself in that fear and just try a little bit at a time. Brick by brick, you're building a house that can withstand anything. Yep. So that's my take on that. Marisa, do you want to fill that in? What Jen's bringing up, the fear of failure, fear of success thing?
I, interestingly enough, had that as part of my official diagnosis years ago from a psychologist, fear of success.
Oh.
And so I've been there. He didn't say fear of failure. He said fear of success. I remember that. And I never used to, and I was young. I didn't understand what that meant. I was, early.
Right.
early teens. Now, at this age, I totally get it.
Yeah.
And because when you do well, like you just said, you don't know how you're going to respond to that set of circumstances.
Right.
That's unknown. And so that
Right.
falls into the fear of the unknown, doesn't it?
Sure. Sure it does.
We can hope and we can assume and we can plan and imagine all we want, but we don't know how we're going to act in any given moment until we live that moment.
That's right.
And I think if Glenn was here, he would say something to that effect. So just go ahead and live the moment and not be so concerned of what might or might not happen.
Yeah.
I just felt like that's a Glenn thing to say.
Yeah.
I can hear his voice in my head saying something like that. Yeah, I still struggle with, to some extent fear of failure, but not to the point of inaction, not like I used to struggle. I've made a lot of steps in my adulthood to break free from that. I've still got the little bit of the fear of success, that,
Sure.
like I want to do these projects or this or that, but what happens then? I don't know why it's such a big deal to me, but when you succeed, other problems come up. Just when you are in a play, you go from act 1 to act 2. Well, act 2 is going to be different situations than act 1. You're just moving to a different scene in your life.
Right.
And you don't know what's going to happen in that scene.
You don't.
So I think, again, it just goes back to the fear of the unknown.
Sure.
So yeah, I would say I still struggle with that a little bit, but I can hear Glenn telling me, "Don't worry about it. Just live."
Yeah. So, do you care to share what did you do? If you were diagnosed with that, and you were saying that you didn't really understand what it was at the time, but then as an adult, you did start to understand it. What did you do to change it for someone that's struggling with the same thing? How does a person face that? Whatever their fear is, what would you say would be a first step to dealing with it?
Just to grab the bull by the horns and just do it. Just face it. I got back into art. I got back into producing artwork on a regular basis. I jumped into live streaming and doing my artwork live, and I did that every night for 2 years. I never knew I was going to do anything like that, and I didn't even think I was going to have a channel, let alone an art channel, let alone what it's become. And many good things have been happening because of that. Certainly there are obstacles and bad things that go with it. You've got toxic people who want to be hateful both on and off the internet. But, you're going to deal with people like that no matter where you go in life.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
best just focus on the good things and keep on reaching forward and doing what it is that you have that passion and talent to do. And that brings me to another quote that I didn't get to put in there. Do not fear mistakes. You will know failure. Continue to reach out. And that's from Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah.
The old Freemason himself, but at least he had a few good things to say, didn't he? From time to time.
Whoever it
But
was.
I just decided to, so many things had not worked out for me. Marriage didn't work out. Other relationships didn't work out. The family I grew up with fell apart. People died. Things changed.
Right.
And nothing was getting me any closer to anything that I wanted for me. That got me, by paying attention to all these other things that didn't have anything to do with what I wanted to do, with who I was, with the talents that God gave me. I was talking to Jen recently about how I had to give myself permission to go ahead and be an artist, go ahead and attempt a career at that, and make a real go of it. Because there were so many people, and there's still people out there who want to say, you suck and go away, and you're no good, you're a failure, you're a sham, whatever they want to say that's negative, fill in the blank. You're going to run into that again everywhere in every walk of life. But you don't listen to those people,
Right.
and you go ahead and just grab onto what God gave you, the talents, the gifts, the abilities he gave you,
Right.
and you just go for it.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be a little scary. It's like riding a roller coaster. You're going up to the top of the first hill, and you're going to feel that tingling in that nervousness in your stomach. Same way, Jason, from theater, there's that nervous energy, that little bit of ooh right before curtain goes up and the show starts. You're
Yeah.
going to have that little bit of stage fright. I still feel that, just the tiniest bit of stage fright, every time before I hit that live button or appear on someone's channel like this. Not much, and it doesn't last long, and it turns into something good.
Sure.
But you've got to face that, and once you push through that, there's so many good things to come from facing your fear and pushing forward. You can sit in the corner and cry and suck your thumb about what might happen till you die. Who wants to live that way? I don't.
Not this guy.
No, bad things will happen, certainly. But you know what? Bad things happen to everybody in one way or another.
Agreed.
And if you're a Christian, again, you've got to trust God to get you through it. And I do. I never expected God to tell me, oh, nothing bad's ever going to happen to you. No, he's the one who gets you through whatever happens to you.
Yeah. And I will add, I know this is a little off topic, but I get really frustrated with some churches that seem to push this idea of, if bad things are happening in your life, that you're living in sin.
Exactly.
That really makes me mad, because it just totally goes against the fact of the matter that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen in your life.
That's right.
Now, sometimes bad things do happen because you're, sinning and making bad decisions, and there's repercussions, but still, that whole thing that's pushed really upsets me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For a child of God, especially, because the Bible's very clear that whom he loves, he lovingly disciplines.
Exactly.
And I can attest. One of the ways I know that I am a believer is because he punished me enough times. I'm like, okay, Father. I'm sorry I did that. Yeah. Hello to Kellyanne Dean, who popped in the chat. Welcome,
Kellyanne.
We are glad that you're here. And she says, happy birthday to Jen.
Aww.
Oh, thank you so much, Kellyanne. Appreciate that.
You're getting a lot of love this birthday.
Yes,
Thanks,
and
guys.
don't forget to check the birthday live stream that I did for Jen on my channel last night on the Nesnova channel. And check that out. It's a good time. Lots of fun. And Jason and Jen, I would love it if you would put your links to Dr. Sleep and the other channel that you mentioned, Out of the Darkness. I forget the name of it. But can you please put those links for people that don't know about those channels and come across this?
Absolutely.
Please and thank you.
You got that, Jen?
Yeah, I can do that.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, and I just have to say, while we're talking, normally Glenn would be here, and I would feel kind of anxious about, plugging channels and stuff, because I think he thinks it's weird. I have autonomy, as Jen says, autonomy, bitches. So, just do yourself a favor, because obviously Maurice's been doing these broadcasts for a long time, and I haven't dove into the archives on her channel as of yet. But the ones that I've seen, especially the ones where Jen has participated, just amazing stuff. And some of the songs that Marisa puts on there and she sings, they're either favorites of mine, or they're becoming again favorites. They're songs I hadn't thought about in a while, and I have them running through my head sometimes. So that's one of the other fun things about the broadcast. So, but if you're an artist or you appreciate art, that's me. I'm not an artist, but I appreciate it. I appreciate that there are people out there like Jen and Marisa that can have something in their head and put it out on paper. I mean, to me, it's no different. I mean, I can do that. You can say, hey, Jason, write a 20-minute play about apples. And I can do that. That's not a struggle for me. But with a pen in my hand and trying to get something out and have it look decent, on a piece of paper or paint something. I just don't have that. So a man's
Y'all
got to
should
know.
see my birthday card that Jason drew for me. It was really cool.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's fun. The thing is, I used to draw when I was a kid, and I think that for me, there is an aspect of this too, where my parents, they occasionally would put things I drew on the refrigerator, and they didn't discourage me from drawing, like Maris's parent or Maris. Oh my gosh.
Oh, she just sent me the card picture. It is so cute.
Right? It's so adorable.
I love it. It looks like a what's the word? A Funko Pop. It's really cool.
Yeah, I like it.
It
It's
does.
cool.
That's a compliment. That's a compliment.
Thank you.
Yep.
It was fun.
Well, now, Jason, you have zero excuse not to have fun with your art with me and Jen in Nez Studio.
Exactly.
None. Negative numbers excuse.
Wow. What have I got myself
Yep.
into?
I know, right?
Well,
Come on.
I can do an envelope because that's what I enjoy doing. So I can do an envelope for Jen.
Envelope design.
Envelope design. I just love doing that. It's fun. Yeah, so there we go. All right. So what else can we say?
Hello to Wisconsin, Greg, for coming in. I love you, Greg. Thanks for coming in.
I love
Good to see you, Greg.
See, Wisconsin, because I'm from Michigan, Wisconsin's like a sister state, and not just in my mind, but that's what they call it, sister state, Wisconsin. And we share Lake Michigan. You know, they're on the what would that be? The west side of Lake Michigan, and Michigan on the east side of Lake Michigan. And there's a ferry that you can take. I looked at doing that one time, taking a ferry over from Wisconsin to Michigan, but I just couldn't think of, other than just the experience of it. Why would I do that? I don't live in Wisconsin. I don't know anybody other than Wisconsin Greg. So, to do that from Michigan, I guess I could take a bus to Wisconsin and take the ferry over, and then have a reason to go to Michigan. I have plenty of reasons to go to Michigan. Anyway, welcome, Wisconsin Greg. We're glad that you're here. So the other thing we could do in the time that we have left, Marisa put a couple scriptures in there. Underneath what is fear, she put the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. Proverbs 9:10 from the KJV. And again, as we described, that's the fear of the Lord is reverence, in my opinion. And then Sun Tzu, which is, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. I think that's very true. The biggest part of that is knowing yourself. I think you can weather any battle if you know yourself. The knowing your enemy part, of course, that definitely helps to know your enemy. So when we talk about narcissism and all of that stuff on the channel, knowing at least what the basics of narcissism are, because you're definitely gonna, if you haven't already, you may have encountered these people in the wild and not have known what you were dealing with. But when someone does understand what they're dealing with, then that can help them be free of it.
Exactly.
Even death is not to be feared by one who has lived wisely. That's a Buddhism. Fear stifles our thinking and actions. It creates indecisiveness that results in stagnation. I have known talented people who procrastinate indefinitely rather than risk failure. Lost opportunities cause erosion of confidence, and downward spiral begins. Charles Stanley. I love that you included Charles Stanley. There are people in the Christian world that are down on Charles Stanley because of this pamphlet they put out that has some legalism in it. The idea that they're works based. And I can tell you this: I don't know Charles Stanley personally, but when I have anxiety, he has probably 50 sermons just on anxiety. So when I feel a really heavy anxiety, I go and listen to Charles Stanley. Some of the sermons I've heard several times, and I listen to them and I look up the verses and I pray, and it always helps me. There has not been a time yet that I have done that where the anxiety didn't lift. I'm sure it was the prayer. Charles Stanley personally doesn't have any control or help over my anxiety. It's God. But the way he talks about it, and he reminds me of things that I need to be aware of as a believer. So I'm a big Charles Stanley person, regardless of what anyone says.
Me too. And not everybody's going to agree on every jot and tittle of doctrine from theology to theology.
Right.
But Charles Stanley certainly has a lot of life experience. He's old enough to be our parent, if not grandparent, for
Grandparent,
goodness
yeah.
sake, how long he's been around.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of wisdom.
Yep.
He does have a lot of wisdom, and it's very comforting.
Yeah. Well, and what he's talking about in this, he's right. Fear stifles
He
our
is right.
actions. And I have experienced that. The procrastinate indefinitely. Like I said earlier, this Dr. Sleep idea, I have been wanting to do something like that. And I've been in radio. I was in radio for a year, and I've talked about that was my dream job or whatever. And I didn't have fear when I did that. But it's a little bit different when you're putting yourself out there again day after day, afraid that you're not good enough. But I can't, like I said, I can't let that stop me. But it has. That's the point I want to make. I have procrastinated indefinitely, and I was not willing to risk failure or success, either one. And I just don't want to live like that. I don't know anyone that wants to live like that. The people I've seen struggle in this area, they don't say, "Oh, I love it that I have writer's block," or whatever they want to call it. And this part about the downward spiral, and that's in my opinion, that's the living in the fear. It's not just a fearful thought that comes and goes, living in that place. Next quote: when it comes your time to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with the fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home. Chief, how do you say that, Marisa?
Tecumseh. I'm surprised you haven't seen the show Tecumseh.
Nope.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it. I think there's some truth in this. I do know this. I've looked at a lot of the last words of people, and there was a nurse that made the comment. I forget who it was that was dying, but she said she would never again attend the death of an atheist.
Wow.
I'm sure that's not true in every case, but this particular person was a famous person, and they didn't want to die, and they were regretful. I don't know whatever happened, if they repented or they believed in the end or anything like that. It'd be a better story if I did, but the point is that some people, not everyone, of course, but they do come to the end, and they're doing what he says here, weeping and praying for more time. Well, sometimes we don't get more time. This is
Right.
the time we have. So why would I want to live in that, spend that time in needless fear of something I don't have any control over? I don't know when I'm going to die. Now there are choices I can make, better health choices, and I can choose to not do things that will kill me sooner. But you can live in a healthy way. Everything's healthy, and you get hit by a bus. You just don't know is the point. So I don't want to live in a fear of dying. But if you believe that this is the only life you live, and that's it, you can do what Glenn does, which he's like, this is the only life there is in his mind, and he's gonna be kind to people while he's here and enjoy it, and to him that's all there is. But there are people that don't believe, that are the opposite of that they are in this fear place. I don't want to be there. Anyone want to comment on that one before I read the Eleanor Roosevelt one?
Well, it just makes me think that again, that fear is a spirit. We're not given a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And I think much of the fear out there is indeed spiritual. I think it's being projected by nefarious people in power to, program people to be afraid of this or that. And I think if you are aware of that, if you believe that way, and you realize it's a choice. Quite often, fear is a choice. You don't have to go there.
Right.
And I think you can find some empowerment and some courage by just choosing to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to live that way.
Right.
I'm going to make the most of my life, moment by moment. None of us promise tomorrow, and good and bad things happen to us all.
Right.
So, no sense spinning our wheels in the mud and muck of fear. It's just not going to get you. That goes right along with worry. Worrying doesn't do you any good. Praying does, but worrying doesn't. And fear brings about worry, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It sure does.
We don't want that. Okay, I'm going to pop the Dr. Sleep post into the chat.
Thank you.
And we're winding it up now, guys. Appreciate you hanging around. And again, we were most times in the double digits. And we appreciate that, guys. That's because you're willing to show up and be in the chat. And we appreciate everyone that took the time to join us.
Yes,
and then for those, because obviously, we get, like an average of 100 views on every video, something like that. And so we know people listen, and we have fewer people in the chat than we do subscribers. But we appreciate you guys too, the ones that are just listening. I looked at the data on it, and there's a lot of people that do listen to the broadcast that aren't subscribed. And I just wanted to ask you, if that's you, just do us a favor and subscribe. It does help us, and put a like on the videos if you're enjoying the content. But the best thing that you can do is tell others about True Story Live. Let them know that we're here, and that's going to help us, get the word out a little bit. And you can do that to help us if you would. That'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, and then this is the link for our other channel, and this is Out of the Dark. And this channel is focused on narcissistic abuse. And we do only have one video up at present, but it's a really great story. And if it's not your cup of tea, but you want to be supportive, do us a favor and just subscribe. But if it is something that you want to hear and you want to help other people that have been through abusive relationships, narcissism, or whatever, or if you just want to know more about it, that people do go through these things, just do us a favor and like, subscribe, and share. And also any feedback that you would like to give on how to improve the channel, any of our channels, True Story Live, Dr. Sleep, or Out of the Dark. We are very open. We're not like some people who don't want to hear constructive criticism. We definitely do. So thank you for that. And in the time left that we have, again, I want to ask you to go over to Nez Lover's channel if you haven't visited her already. If you're listening to the playback, there's a lot of things that she talks about, and she has a lot of channels. I probably don't even know what all Marisa is into. So Marisa, if you wanted to let other people know about a channel other than the Nez Lover channel, and if you want to just briefly share what you're doing on those channels, if you want to, go ahead and do that.
Well, I do have another channel called Adventures on Flat Earth, and I usually do like nature stuff. Sometimes I'll, respond to some of my critics there, but there's not a lot of people there. But I'd like to continue to upload. That's kind of a sign for me to get motivated and upload more content on that particular channel as well. I don't have the link handy, but I'll be sure to share it in a future broadcast.
Yeah, put it in the comments under the show if you want.
I will do that. I'd like to build that channel up a little bit more. I've had it for a while. I've got like maybe 60 subscribers, and not all of them are trolls, but
oh, good.
That's
I'm a
funny.
little more free with my speech on that channel. So that's the only other channel I can think of at this time that
Okay. Well, if
I'd
you
like
ever
to
want,
help build up.
like I said the other day, if you ever wanted to fire that one back up, I need an outlet. I mean, I was thinking about even using my personal channel, uh, Jason Cripps, if I talked about truth or stuff on that, because the other channels are kind of focused on other things, and it's not that we can't mention it, but it's really not the focus. But I would love to do a stream and talk about some of these topics. Just putting it out there.
Yes, I would love that. That would be great. I still need to go to your narcissistic abuse channel.
Oh,
Regrettably,
please.
it's still on my to-do list.
Oh,
I'll be sharing that out in my stream as well.
well, thank you.
Thank you, Nez.
Marisa, we appreciate all the sharing that you've done. And also, when I went on the Nut House the other day, he shared it. And I think we got like 15 subscribers from him. And this is the way it works. And I'm learning how to promote better. But I've learned a lot from Marisa. And as she said, I forget which channel she was talking about it on. But she was saying this is what we do. We support each other and talk about the channels. And we do talk about it a little bit, but normally we're so focused on the topic that seems like we don't have as much time to do that. And I can feel Glenn rolling his eyes as he listens to this. You guys spent the last 10 minutes talking about your other channels. What's up with that? Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, we're at the end of the broadcast, guys, so we're going to go ahead and close it up. And again, if you weren't here at the beginning, Glenn wasn't here tonight. He's taking his wife in for some health stuff, and just pray for safe travels for them. And he does plan on being here next week, at least as far as I understand. So if you do pray, please do that. Go before the throne for our friend Glenn and his wife, Sandra. And if you just put up thoughts instead of prayers, those I believe are helpful too. They all go to the same place, in my opinion. But just send your thoughts out there. Good vibes, whatever word you want to use for it, it's all welcome from Glenn. So there we go. All right. So let's say our good nights, and I'll say good night first. Guys, thank you for being a part of tonight's broadcast. Thank you, Marisa, for taking the time to do the write-up. And we appreciate everyone in the chat and everyone listening to the playback. Thank you for being here. If you want to support these other channels that we have going, two of the links have already been put in there from Jen and I. Out of the Dark and Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep is a channel I read, and Jen reads stories to help people with insomnia or help them sleep, or to try to be really relaxing and calming and things like that. But give those a listen. And then Out of the Dark is a narcissistic abuse recovery, where we read letters from people that have been through this, and we talk briefly about these topics on that channel. And then last but not least, of course, Nez Lover channel for art streams, wonderful singing and karaoke, and a lot of humor and creativity and imagination.
So much.
It's really good.
And inspiration.
All right. So, Jen, if you would say goodbye to the peoples, and if you have any closing comments, the birthday girl, then please take the time to do that.
All right. Thanks for all of you guys on the panel and chat for coming to hang out with this old lady. I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow. I'm older.
I still feel very young and I'm healthy, so I'm very, very grateful. Thank you, God. But thank you so much, Nez, for writing this beautiful write-up and on a really important topic. I think people don't tend to talk about fear a lot, which unfortunately perpetuates this idea. I know I did. I used to look around and I would look at people and it wasn't talked about a lot. So I kept thinking I was the only one that dealt with fear. I think it's really helpful to know that other people struggle with it and have their own areas of fear and how it manifests in our bodies and minds and stuff. So I'm just grateful that we can discuss topics that maybe people don't talk about very much, to sort of put a finger on it and let people know they're not alone in it and their own struggles. So appreciate it. And we miss you, Glenn, Sandra. We're praying for you guys and praying for you guys in the chat. And if you have any prayer requests, pop them in the chat. We'll definitely add it to our prayer list, all of us. And have a great night. It was lovely as always. And see you guys next week. Thanks.
All right. And lastly, Marissa's going to say goodbye. If you have any closing comments, please give them and close us down for tonight. Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you. Fear is something that we all experience in our human journey of life. And it can be great fears. It can be, menial fears. It can be well-founded, seemingly so. It can be ridiculous to some other people. But all the same, recognize that, it is a common experience in general to have fear, but it's not something that you need to let control you or motivate you. We brought up earlier that fears and phobias can indeed be overcome, and I'm a living testimony to that, and I'm sure my co-panelists can attest to that as well. You don't have to stay in that place of fear. If you're a person of faith in Jesus, you certainly do not have to stay in a place of fear, because we're not given a spirit of fear, power, love, and a sound mind. Thank you all for being here tonight. Happy birthday, Jen. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And everybody who watches the replay, please share it out on your social media if you're so inclined. And love to Glenn and Sandra. And we love you. We miss you. And God willing, we'll see you next week all together here on True Story Live. God bless.